Can the Dallas Cowboys succeed under Jerry Jones? We're speaking with an NFL insider who believes the owner is a major impediment to the team winning. We're also chatting with a golf legend on the cusp of the tournament named for her, and we have stories from baseball, football, soccer, tennis, and F1. This episode is sponsored by Gainbridge. It's Wednesday, November 13th. I'm your host, Owen Poindexter, and this is Front Office Sports Today. In today's episode, we're talking about Jerry Jones, the Cowboys, and other big NFL topics with insider Jordan Schultz. We're taking a look at a Japanese soccer legend and a tennis controversy, and later we're chatting with golf legend Annika Sörenstam, who's about to host her namesake tournament. Here are your top headlines. Jones County Police in central Georgia charged Matthew Neat with selling over $1 million in fake tickets. Neat allegedly swindled over 30 people across the state into forking over $1.3 million for non-existent tickets to UGA football games, Taylor Swift concerts, and the Masters. Neat was arrested in Louisiana and extradited to Jones County Jail, where he is being held without bond. Thai telecommunications carrier Jasmine International has secured the exclusive rights to broadcast Premier League games in Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. The initial deal sees Jasmine International paying the EPL $233 million for 3 years and could potentially go up to $560 million 6 years if both sides approve. Over to baseball, Hurricane Milton tore a hole through the roof of Tropicana Field last month, putting the Rays' future in St. Petersburg in serious doubt. But there is now a beacon of hope that the field can be ready for the 2026 season. On Tuesday, city officials released a damage report that estimated a $55.7 million cost to fix the domed roof and other parts of the damaged field. St. Petersburg Mayor Ken Welch said that he was happy with the report being on the lower side, and the fact that our folks think it could be done quickly is really a best-case scenario for us. The stadium is still slated for demolition following the 2027 season, when the team plans to move into a new stadium. Formula One race director Niels Wittig stepped down with immediate effect yesterday, with 3 races left to go in the season. It's possible that disgruntled drivers played a role in Wittig's sudden resignation. Formula One's officiating has been a huge topic in recent weeks, with drivers upset over inconsistency in penalties and at the governing body's decision to hand Max Verstappen community service for swearing at a news conference. According to the FIA, Wittig is resigning to pursue new opportunities. However, Germany's Motorsport magazine insists that Wittig told them he was fired, and he did not resign on his own volition. According to the BBC, Wittig left early due to his relationship with FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem. The Chicago Bears offensive coordinator Shane Waldron was also shown the door after the team's 19-3 loss to the New England Patriots. This was the Bears' 3rd straight loss this year. In that 3-game skid, the team averaged just 9 points per game and 230 yards. For context, last season, the average NFL team scored 21.7 points per game and totaled 332 yards. The Bears announced the firing on Tuesday, just one day after head coach Matt Eberflus promised changes and adjustments. This is the first time the franchise has ever changed offensive coordinators mid-season. It's been a rough season for the Dallas Cowboys, and my next guest, Fox Sports and NFL insider Jordan Schultz, believes the problem starts at the top with owner Jerry Jones. We discuss that, the rise of the Commanders, the undefeated Chiefs, and plenty more. Here's our conversation. Joined now once again by NFL insider for Fox Sports, where he appears on The Herd with Colin Cowherd, Jordan Schultz. Welcome, Jordan.
Owen, my man. Good to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back on. So we've had a little time to process the trade deadline. What would you say was the biggest shift in balance of power in the NFL?
I think there were a couple moves that stood out the most, but I guess I would start with Washington getting Marshawn Lattimore from New Orleans. Just a total reset with the Saints. They didn't make other moves, but this was the big move that I think a lot of people were hoping a contender would make. And Washington ends up swooping in late. Now, Baltimore and Kansas City were in on it as well, but the Commanders ultimately had the draft capital and the salary cap to really make this thing happen. They only pay Lattimore about $600,000 the rest of the year, but they also get a guy who is a 4-time Pro Bowler, who's 28 years old, and fits what Dan Quinn wants to do. You know, if you think about, without getting too much inside baseball here, they've been playing a lot of zone this year. Dan Quinn really wanted to play more man. That's really what his DNA is, and now he has in Lattimore a guy that can do that. And I felt like this move was to really go up against Philadelphia, you know, who's controlled that division the last few years, because now you have a guy who can run and cover Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. I also love what the Chiefs did. You know, they get DeAndre Hopkins, who everyone thought was washed, and then, you know, it's no coincidence, Owen, that his second game back, where he goes for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns, or 86 yards, is also Kelsey and Mahomes' best games. Kelsey had 14 catches, 100 yards. Mahomes had 300 yards and three touchdowns. And then, to me, if you think about Kansas City too, they wanted to add pass rusher. They got a guy from New England, and Josh Uche, who had 10.5 sacks 2 years ago. So, like, I love what the Chiefs did. I really like what Washington did. I thought Pittsburgh getting a receiver and Mike Williams, who can win these 50-50 balls that they want, was significant. So there were some good moves.
Getting back to that Washington team, are they are they in a contention window right now? Like, is this something that's going to last at least a few years with this core?
They have completely, because of Jaden Daniels, Owen, that whole franchise has been completely changed. The entire perception of the franchise, the way that we view it as media, as fans, I think players, it's amazing what one guy can do. But that's a Jaden Daniels effect. And then also, new GM, new head coach, they've completely re-energized a fan base that's been dormant for the last couple of decades because of Daniel Snyder. So I don't know if they're, like, I think they're really, really good. I don't know if they're quite there yet, a contention standpoint. I guess that's just me thinking this is their first year, and it's really hard for first-year teams with really young quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, to make that push. But this is the clear signal. That move was that we are going to start pushing now because we have this window now with Jaden Daniels for the next several years. You've seen that formula help teams like Seattle win a Super Bowl. We've seen it with Brock Purdy. We've even seen it with Kansas City and Mahomes before they had to pay him. It's, if you hit on a young quarterback, it allows you so much more financial flexibility. And whether or not Lattimore ends up getting a long-term extension remains to be seen. I think that would be the goal of Washington. But regardless, it's them saying we believe we're a contender right now.
Staying in that division, we've got a couple messes. The Cowboys, I think, are sort of the mess that wasn't supposed to be a mess. But Dak's out for the season. McCarthy's barely hanging on to his job. Does this franchise have long-term problems, or Dak gets healthy and they probably got a new coach? And could the Cowboys come back?
Yeah, there's no single fix for Dallas. They have significant long-term problems. They have an owner that isn't invested in winning. Owen, I mean, that's the simplest way to put it. They have not been a relevant franchise in terms of on the field for so long. I mean, I know they had 3 straight 12-win seasons, but they had that disastrous loss at home to Green Bay in the playoffs. They haven't won a Super Bowl in 3 decades. They haven't been to a championship game, NFC championship game, in decades. It's just, the Dak thing is really unfortunate, but they weren't going anywhere with Dak this year. They have had injuries without question, and that has contributed to it. But I think the issue starts at the top with Jerry Jones. It then goes to Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer. This defense has underperformed under Mike Zimmer. They were top 10 every year with Dan Quinn, and now they're basically dead last in every statistical category. Mike McCarthy, I didn't get why they retained him after the Green Bay loss. I thought those were his true colors. There's really no scenario in my mind where he retains his job at the end of the year. But they're not a player away. They're not a coach away. They are a serious owner away, and they're not getting that as long as Jerry Jones is in control.
Yeah, well, and he's going to be in control until he passes
he's
away,
not going
or
anywhere.
until I'm not sure what else it would take, honestly. But it sounds like
no, they don't have any. They don't have any. There's no solution there. It's unfortunate because they do have a lot of talent on the roster, but no.
Yeah, wow. And just while we're in that division, the Giants, and it looks like Daniel Jones is maybe done as their quarterback, maybe forever. Dayball's hanging on to his job for now, and maybe he gets to keep it for a bit. Hard to say. Is that a franchise that if they get a good quarterback can turn this around, or are they at least a couple years out?
I think clearly the best 2 teams in the division now and long term are Philadelphia and Washington. New York, I was pretty adamant should have paid Saquon Barkley when it happened. They didn't.
Yeah.
We've seen what's happened subsequently. Dayball says they're going to think about the quarterback going into the bye week. They don't play next week. But John Mara, the owner, comes out 2 weeks ago, Owen, and says our head coach and GM are safe. It's rare for an owner to do that of a struggling team during the season. It also doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen. I mean, he said that about Joe Judge, and he fired him 2 weeks later. This was years back. So,
Uh-huh.
I've always liked Daniel Jones. I don't know what's going to happen there, but it does seem like there is a disconnect between ownership, head coach, and quarterback.
I want to just briefly check on the Chiefs. They're undefeated. They also have the eighth best point differential in the league. They just seem to. It's like they don't have to win pretty, or they don't blow
Mhm.
teams out necessarily, but they keep winning. Do they have some kind of special sauce, or are they just kind of
This
lucky?
this feels like there's certain teams where you just feel like it's their year.
Yeah.
Um, I picked Kansas City to win and do the three-peat, which has never happened. They have been so close on so many of these weeks, but at some point, it's not luck anymore. Like, this is the culture they have, and if you
Hmm.
talk to players there, they say like we just know we're gonna come through. They have the quarterback. Then we mentioned Hopkins. They have an awesome defense. They have the best defensive coordinator in football in Steve Spagnuolo. I think the best head coach in football in Andy Reid. They're so creative, and now they're getting healthy. I just reported they get back Pacheco and Aminu, running back and pass rusher. Hopefully, they'll get back Hollywood Brown at some point. Um, they have just a really complete football team, and they don't. It's pretty cool when you don't need Mahomes to go out and be dominant every week, and that's the reality. They don't need Mahomes to be Herculean every week, as long as he's adequate, which he is. Um, every week, like he's to me, he's still the best quarterback in the league. I think Jackson right now is the MVP clearly, but like as long as Pat is playing decent football, which he always has, they're going to be in every game. It's exciting for them, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's luck. I think this is who they are. This
Yeah.
is the best team in football, and yeah, they're trying to do something that nobody's ever done to go back to back to back.
Yeah. Exciting. One last question before we let you go. So Berlin is now bidding on NFL
Yeah,
games,
everyone
and
wants in.
Goodell
Yep.
just said, we're going probably upwards of 8 international
Mhm.
games. Is there a limit to how much the NFL is going to expand overseas, or are they just going
I
to
don't.
keep going and going?
No, I don't think so. And I would have said yes, but then they went to South America and Brazil, and that was to me a big like a big showcase of like we can go because Europe is one thing, right? Like they've always had a built-in audience in Europe. They knew they would be successful, in the UK. They've had great success there. Now they've had success in Germany. They've talked about Italy and I believe Spain, and it's obviously they've had success in Ireland. They've gone all over Europe, but to go to South America and have success there told me that there is no there's absolutely there's no point in which they won't go. So I don't think there's a cap on countries they'll hit. They've been strategic about it. They've grown. Um, it's just amazing to me that the league has done this. 10 years ago, Owen, I never would have thought that they'd be playing games in Brazil and Germany. And so now you think 5, 10 years down the road, they'll be in countries that I don't even think we anticipated. But they've been extremely aggressive and strategic about it. I've been critical of Roger Goodell in many aspects, including refereeing and the issues they've had. But this is one area in which the league has been extremely, I would say, intelligent with how they've approached it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have to agree. Jordan Schultz, really appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Owen. My pleasure, buddy.
When you think of professional athletes that played for the longest time, who comes to mind? Tom Brady made it to 45. Aaron Rodgers is hanging in there at 40. LeBron turns 40 next month. Going back a ways, Gordie Howe made it all the way to 51. But none of them got anywhere close to Kazuyoshi Miura, who just finished up the season with Atletico Suzuka in Japan's 4th Division League and announced he plans to play next season when he will be 58. Miura was a star for the Japanese national team in the 90s. He played in Europe as recently as the 2023-24 season when he was loaned for €100,000 to a second division Portuguese team. The year prior, he became the oldest player in Japanese Football League history to score a goal at the age of 55. He owns many records for the oldest player to do something. In his nearly 4-decade career, he has played in Brazil, Italy, Australia, and Croatia. For Miura, age is nothing but a number. Over to tennis. We have a weird situation over in the tennis world. Tennis Channel analyst John Wertheim was caught on a hot mic making fun of the appearance of a top women's player, Barbora Krejcikova. Wertheim, who's been on this show once a while back, was getting ready for an appearance on the channel, and he didn't like how his forehead looked. And he said, "Who do you think I am, Barbora Krejcikova?" The fallout was swift. Krejcikova put out a statement on social media saying his comments were disappointing and that she stayed silent in similar situations where people were focusing on her appearance instead of her performance, but now she felt like it was time to speak out. Wertheim put out his own statement apologizing to the player and saying, quote, "I realize I am not the victim here. It was neither professional nor charitable nor reflective of the person I strive to be. I'm accountable. I own this. I am sorry." The Tennis Channel suspended him indefinitely. I'm very much of two minds here. On one hand, Krejcikova has every right to be offended. Athletes have to put up with this kind of nonsense a lot, and that goes double for female athletes. The Tennis Channel is doing its own damage control by at least temporarily disowning Wertheim because they don't want to absorb the backlash he's getting. I get all that. That said, the standards for behavior for broadcasters are higher than for almost anyone, and that creates a lot of awkward tension in these situations. Tom Brenneman, the broadcaster on the famous Nick Castellanos call, was done after that game when he used a homophobic slur on a hot mic. Last year, the A's lost their longtime broadcaster, Glenn Kuiper, after he said a racial slur in a verbal slip during a broadcast. It's a profession where one word can end a career. I have long felt that we as a society don't really know what to do in these situations. Some people will say Wertheim's career should be over. Some will say the apology was enough and he should be back at work tomorrow. Some will even say that there was no need to apologize. That's a huge range of responses. And surely the answer is somewhere in the middle, but where exactly? Brenneman is actually an interesting case study because as of this year, he is back. Not with the Reds, not with baseball, not with Fox, but he is calling college football games for CW Sports. I think we need a cultural penalty box. Wertheim's comments, I think, should get the equivalent of a 2-minute minor. Maybe that's a month off. Maybe he has to skip the next Grand Slam tournament. Something like that. Brenneman said something despicable and hurtful, but I'm not mad that he's back after 4 years. That's a long time. The reason people can be permanently canceled for this stuff is because they are replaceable. The Tennis Channel can easily find a new analyst without the baggage. But when you don't fit the punishment to the crime, then we end up treating every unfortunate comment as equally bad. And that creates a market for people who say offensive things all the time with no shame. Caitlin Clark is playing today. She's going from the court to the green to play with Annika Sörenstam and Nelly Korda to begin the Annika, which is a tournament named after Sörenstam. I got to speak with Sörenstam ahead of the event. This interview is brought to you by Gainbridge. Yesterday, Gainbridge presented a Parity Week Grant surprise check, the 22nd grant for $22,000 to number 22 Caitlin Clark and the Caitlin Clark Foundation. Gainbridge has now awarded 22 grants for over $170,000 in total funding to organizations that support girls and women through sports and education. I am joined now by Annika Sörenstam. Welcome, Annika.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you. So the second edition of the Annika, the tournament in Florida, named after you, is coming up. What are you anticipating for the event?
Well, we're super excited. We had such a good time last year, and then this year it's shaping up to be even better. All the things that we do outside the competition, whether it's celebrating the veterans, we have a junior clinic, we do a women's summit, we got a great field. Golf course has recovered beautifully. And so, just really excited. I mean, Gainbridge is really trying to make this one of the best tournaments on the schedule. So excited to be a part of it again and look forward to starting, just in a few days.
And yeah, just on the golf course recovering, did it sustain any damage from the recent hurricanes?
Yeah, I wasn't there. I don't live in that area, but we were following it closely with people that live in the area, and certainly the tournament director and the superintendent. And I guess they had 5 or more greens that were underwater. So it was a little bit concerning. But I guess Mother Nature was good in a way that it's just kind of somehow evaporated within hours, which really saved the greens. And then they were just very fortunate to have the members, to have the community, a lot of support to go out there and literally just clean up the place, pick up twigs, move stuff that had been, flown around, etc. And so the recovery has been amazing. And I heard the course is looking wonderfully now.
Thinking about last year, the first time this was the Annika, what was the biggest surprise for you?
I just love the community outreach. When you go to Bel Area, which is, in the Tampa suburbs, it's like, there were signs everywhere. People were just engaged. Restaurants were welcoming players and caddies and sponsors and fans. And I just thought the turnout was really amazing. I felt like we were so welcome and people wanted to be there, whether it was, the Tampa Lightning that were part of it, or there was just a lot of people outside the game of golf that wanted to be involved and be part of the celebration.
This year, speaking of outside of the game of golf, you have Caitlin Clark as a panelist, and you're going to play with her on Wednesday. What do you expect from her game?
Yeah, no, I never met her. Obviously, been a big fan like many others, and followed her, through TV and just her athletic ability. So I have no doubt that she's going to be an excellent golfer. I know golf is probably her number two sport as far as I've understood it, and she doesn't shy away from pressure. So I think she's going to do quite well. I really look forward to meeting her, spending some time, and playing some golf together. Walk inside the ropes and share some fun stories. And but this is another thing that I think is really going to elevate this game. I mean, this tournament, just by her being there. I mean, there's a lot of interest. People that might not be golf fans, but they are, just women's sports fans. They're going to come out. Young girls want to be inspired. So another way to elevate this tournament is going to be really a fun week, and starting out with a bang like that.
Yeah, absolutely. She,
Mhm.
attracts interest everywhere she goes. Reminds me a little bit of Steph Curry, just in that she's an incredible shooter, basketball player. And Curry, I know, is pretty obsessed with golf. Like, you get the sense that if he wasn't a basketball player, he might be a professional golfer. I don't know if Clark's at that level, but she might be, just, given her interest and her abilities. And how is Gainbridge supporting this event and Parity Week in general?
Yeah, so Gainbridge is just a big supporter of women and women's sports, and it started last year with a parity week. So they've been a big supporter of Billie Jean King Cup, giving playing opportunities for women and increasing the purses to higher level. And so they're taking the month of November and celebrating women's achievements in the different sports. So what they're doing this year, outside our tournament, is obviously back to Billie Jean King Cup. But for us, they're bringing in, you mentioned Caitlin Clark, but also they're bringing in the IndyCar drivers, two of them. Um, and one of them, Marcus Ericsson, is a Swede. The other one, heard of the driver. So they're just kind of bringing in sports, bringing into women, and just creating a lot of exposure, opportunities, and inspiring the next generation. And Parody is kind of I guess you call it a sister company of Gamebridge, but that's really what they focus on. And it's been terrific.
Speaking of all that, and Caitlin Clark as well, women's sports, of course, have been on a rise, a huge rise these last couple years. To what degree is women's golf part of that story?
Well, I think women's golf is very much part of this big story. I think we've seen, an increase in interest, participation and just sponsorships. The purses have gone up. Just the exposure in general has been great for women's golf, and there's so many more stories to share to hopefully inspire and motivate others to pick up the game. But something that I care a lot about is also the venues, the courses that the women get to play. They are bucket list courses that people have heard of, and there's a lot of history to it. Maybe the men play there, or it's just got a major feel to some of these courses, and I think just add to the excitement. So women's golf is certainly on the rise, and I think when it's like one boat rises, the other one kind of come along. And so I think it started, tennis obviously has played a big role, golf has played a big role, and now we got the WNBA. So I think it's just good for sports in general.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's other examples. And the courses is a great point that
Mhm.
women are getting more high profile golf courses now. Are there other examples that you can point to where it's like it was like this when you were playing perhaps, and now things are changing in some direction?
Yeah, I mean, other than the courses and the purses, I do feel like the sponsorship money is there. They try to involve more women in the discussions when, corporate America is out there looking for sponsorships. They want to have woman ambassadors as well. We do have a tournament at the end of the year, a mixed tournament at Grant Thornton, where, a PGA guy plays with an LPGA player, and that's creating. So I think opportunities are coming along, and the women is, it's an attractive way to get into sports, because at this point we're still, we're not overpriced, if you know what I mean. The purses are not like they're on the PGA Tour, which is getting very expensive to participate in. Here you can still buy pro-am spots, and bring your customers out, and they can walk inside the ropes with the players and interact with them. So I think as far as that, women are still very, we are reasonable, and then also you can connect with them in an easier way than with maybe some other sports. So I think there's a lot of benefits obviously to golf, and what the women's sport has to offer.
You mentioned men's tournament purses getting pretty astronomical. Obviously, a big part of that's the involvement of Saudi Arabia, the creation of Live Golf, and we're still in a state of flux right now in terms of a merger between the PGA Tour and the Public Investment Fund, which funds Live Golf. I'm wondering sort of what you think about the state of men's golf, given all that, and of course, Saudi Arabia has also made some noises about incorporating women's golf more into what they do. Maybe having a women's live tour, or depending on how the merger goes, maybe something else. But I'm just wondering kind of how you feel about their involvement in the sport.
No, I wish I have a lot of, breaking news. I don't really have any other than just kind of following it from afar. But it seems like right now that there's a solution in the near future. I do think that the last 2 or 3 years we've really seen a big disconnect especially on the men's tour, when some of the players have gone on the live tour, and then you have the regular PGA Tour, and it's just been so much unknown. Purses have gone up on both sides, so that it's good for the players, of course, but it's also tough to be able to sustain what they have created. So it would be nice to maybe somehow merge them back together, and we will get the top players play against each other in the big tournaments, and get away from this division. So maybe there's some light in the tunnel. We've had, as far as on the women's side, I mean, there's been discussion, about a live tour for women. I don't really think that's going to happen, but we've had, the Ramco, which is part of, the live series. They've had, 7 or 8 or 9 tournaments, mostly on the ladies European tour. And that's been working quite well. So, they have been supporting, women's golf, certainly not to the extent that the live is, but they have had some tournaments, and it's worked really well. They found a happy medium there. So hopefully the PGA Tour and the men's side can do the same.
All right. Very interesting. Annika Sörenstam, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Time now for Front Office Sports Tomorrow, where we look ahead to what's coming in the business of sports. The city of Berlin has submitted a bid to host an NFL game next year, and at this point it would be a shock if that bid failed. Asked about the rumors that the German capital would soon host a game, Commissioner Roger Goodell said, "Believe it. We do, and it's safe to pencil in games there, Munich and Frankfurt going forward. Throw in London, Paris, Ireland, and Spain, and the league may soon have an at least semi-regular presence in much of Western Europe." That's it for today. Leave us a rating and review wherever you like to tune in, or tell a friend about the show. If you're on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.